Welcome. What I have here is a random object generator. It's gonna spin. It's gonna select some object. I'm gonna make that object, and hopefully, you can learn a thing or two about my workflow, and I can also learn to make new things that I usually wouldn't make. A desk is quite boring, but maybe that's a good start for the first one, because it should be very, very simple. You start by deleting everything. Press A for all, X to delete, and then I would Shift A, add a plane. You usually start with what you think would look best. I'm scaling SY2, scaling along the Y-axis by 2. Extruding for thickness downwards, and then you get the base. You can press Command R for loop cuts, like this. Usually you don't have to, but for this case, I will delete half of it so that I can just add a mirror modifier to replicate it to the other side, so that whatever I do here gets copied to the other side. Just makes the workflow faster. I'll add another edge loop here. You know what? I'm gonna add another mirror actually. Here. So I would add yet another mirror on the y-axis. Oh, by the way, clipping is so that even if I try to pull it apart, it doesn't, it stays intact. So if I do that, then I can just make this one edge here, and it'll get applied to the rest. I really don't have to do this, but I'm doing this for the sake of symmetry, I guess. More loop cuts. I'm trying to make a square-ish thing. And then you would just extrude it down, really. Cool, that's a desk. I'll add a plane as the ground and scale it up. This is quite a big desk, I think. It's 2 meters tall. It'd be perfect size for me. Now it's 1 meter high, which is, I think that's a fair amount. I've re-added the camera I've deleted. View, camera to view. So now whatever you're looking at turns into the camera view. So I'll just get a good angle on this desk. Seems about good enough. I'm editing the floor right now. Edge mode, edge select mode, edge mode, edge select mode. To select the edges, and then extruding up, I can select these 3 and bevel. Command B. Make the back smoother. So this will be the backdrop. This is the background to the scene. I guess I'll name this as well. This is the desk. So now it kind of makes the background look a bit more infinite. I'm adding material to it. I'm adding a material to it now. Just make it like 0.95, really rough. See how it's really gray? That's because the world lighting is gray. But then that adds a bit of light that I don't want. So I'm going to make it pitch black so that I can isolate the light sources to be the only light source, because I believe it gives it a nice cinematic look. And so I've just added a new light, area light, because I believe it works best for these cinematic scenes. This is an area light. Now I could also add like a sun, but a sun isn't great because you can have multiple, but it's more difficult. It's harder to kind of light specifically where you want to light. So an area light is good. It's good. It's always a pain to like move it around and then reorientate to make it face the desk. So what I like to do is add an empty, which the light can track to, so that I can just move this empty for where the light should face. Like, without having to do that, I can just add a constraint track to the empty, so that whenever I move this, it just tracks the empty. Right now it looks like this. You don't see anything because the light is currently too far away, and 10 watts, so it's too weak. I can make it like 50. But you see that here's the lightest part, and it's showing less here. That's because of the spread. So Blender has 2 render engines. Right now we're on Eevee, which is a simpler one. Cycles is a lot more advanced, because you see that it's really grainy right now. But what Cycles does really well is it calculates each light bounce more specifically, so it really makes for more realistic scenes. I'm going to render with GPU because it's going to be faster for this computer. Denoising kind of reduces that sandiness. Previously on my last MacBook, I could only go to like 50 samples, but I got a better one now, so I'm going to try maybe like, by default it's 4096, and that's way too high, I think. Still, I'm not used to it, so I will go with something like 250 maybe. Cool. And same for here. This is the viewport. This is the viewport. What we're looking at right now is the viewport, and I can make this a lot more simpler than the actual final render, just for the purpose of looking around. Oh wow. The fewer the samples, the worse graphics I guess it gets. And the higher the noise threshold, the worse it gets, but the faster and less load it has on your computer. So 0.01, that's set by default. I usually used to do 0.05 or 0.1 even with much lower samples, but I'll leave it as is for now. Cool. And with that, you can now adjust the spread. So what I was saying earlier is, oh, it's no longer tracking. So yeah, what I was previously saying was, you see how this is the strongest part and this is, the light is stronger here than here. Which doesn't look good for cinematicness because I don't like the light being around the object, but only focusing on it. That's because the spread is very wide, if you imagine a line here. So I'm going to make it like 50. The light will become stronger and focus on the object itself more. So once again, I'll change the camera angle, make it come a bit diagonally from the camera. I'm going to sneeze. Ah, it disappeared. I'm going to change this style. I'm just going to have it really show the table. So I'm going to make it really bright. That's a bit too bright, maybe. You know what? That's fine. So usually I use this. This is the Blender Kit add-on. So you can just like paste a bunch of materials in it, like on whatever you want to use. So for example, if you want to make this like a wooden table, you can just search wood and it pretty much just gives you what you want. And you can apply it to it and it will look really good. As such, although the orientation is wrong right now. Like it's going sideways, which I guess we don't really want. Maybe more this way, and that would make more sense. But you get my point. But in this case, I'll just use very simple materials that I can manipulate more easily. So a nice bright purple table. Let me delete this. A nice very bright purple table. I'll make the leg just a different color. You can do that by selecting what you want to change the color with. Add a new material. Assign it to a new material. Like that, and it will just change. Maybe I'll go more for a metallic leg. So metallic 1, roughness 0, super shiny metallic leg. And that's pretty much it. Maybe I'll have a super shiny metallic purple table as well. Damn, it looks horrible, but yeah, that's a table. It's a poor choice of materials. I'll make it be saved to my desktop. PNG, that's good. Key to cinematic renders is very high contrast and changing this to filmic, and then it will look quite filmic, cinematic. Maybe I want a light coming from the side to kind of make it, to put it lower and very intense. Again, I will reduce the spread because I don't like it being so illuminate on the ground itself. So if I raise this, maybe it's like 100. Actually, it doesn't really work. Oh, but that's kind of it. Render image, you get what you want. It's basically done. A horrible table. It really does. It looks very 3D as well. Way to prevent that. Good tool is the bevel modifier. Someone said this, but this beveling an object just makes it look more realistic for some reason. Shade smooth to make it smoother. I think I'll reduce the amount because it's doing too much. Maybe the final thing to do would be compositing. People kind of do this with like Adobe After Effects and whatnot, but I don't have that, so I like to do the compositing. But a lot of people do compositing. Blender's compositing works very good. So no compositing, you can kind of just give it like edit the picture itself, make it look wacky. Many tools to do that. Cool. Pretty easy. I think that's it. Very nice and simple. If you have any recommendations what to make, let me know. I will do it. Bye.